Captain Lee Dae-ho stood at the bridge of the Harmony's edge, watching the massive space station grow larger through the viewing screen. Nexus Prime looked like a giant crystal floating in the darkness between stars. Its surface sparkled with millions of lights from different alien ships docked around it. This was where the Galactic Council met, and today, humanity would join for the first time. Lee was 45 years old and had seen many battles during Earth's lonely decades in space. His face showed the stress of those years, but his dark eyes stayed sharp and focused. He wore a simple blue uniform with Earth's flag on his shoulder. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. "Captain, we're getting signals from the station," said Communications Officer Yoon Hee-ri. She was 26 and one of the youngest crew members. Her voice stayed calm, but Lee could hear the excitement underneath. This was the biggest moment in human history. "Put it on screen," Lee said. The main viewer changed to show a reptilian face with yellow eyes and sharp teeth. The creature's skin looked like green leather, and when it spoke, its voice came through the ship's translation system. "Human vessel, you are granted permission to dock at Bay 847. Your delegation will be escorted to the council chambers in 1 standard hour. Do not deviate from your assigned path." The signal cut off before Lee could respond. Dr. Park So-jin, their cultural specialist, shook her head. She was 32 with short black hair and intelligent brown eyes. "Not very friendly," she said, quietly. "Most species get a formal welcome when they join the council." "We're not most species," replied Commander Kim Woo-bin from his station. At 38, Kim was Lee's oldest friend and most trusted officer. They had served together for 15 years. "They made that clear during the first contact meetings," Lee nodded. Humanity had been trying to join the Galactic Council for 50 years, ever since they first made contact with alien civilizations. The other species had kept Earth isolated, treating humans like children who needed to prove themselves worthy. Today was supposed to change all that. The Harmony's edge was small compared to most council ships. Only 200 meters long, it looked plain and simple next to the alien vessels around the station. Other ships were covered in strange metals that changed color or had energy fields that made them glow. The human ship looked like a metal box with engines attached. As they docked, Lee could see alien crew members through the windows of nearby ships. Most of them stopped to stare at the human vessel. Some seemed curious, but others looked like they were trying not to laugh. "Full delegation to the airlock," Lee announced. "Remember, we represent all of humanity today." The delegation was small, only 5 people. Besides Lee, there was Dr. Park, Commander Kim, Tech Specialist Han Ji-woo, and Ambassador Choi Min-ho. Han was 29 and responsible for all the ship's systems. Ambassador Choi was 52 and had spent years preparing for this moment. He was Earth's most experienced diplomat. They walked through the station's corridors, escorted by 2 tall, thin aliens with gray skin and no hair. These were neutral guards who worked for the council. The corridors were huge, built for species much larger than humans. Strange music filled the air, but it sounded more like electronic noise than anything humans would recognize. Other aliens stopped to watch the human delegation pass. Lee saw creatures with 6 arms, others that floated instead of walking, and some that looked like walking trees. Most of them whispered to each other in languages the translation devices couldn't handle. The council chamber was enormous. The ceiling disappeared into darkness high above them. Around the circular room, different alien species sat in groups based on their governments. The largest section belonged to the Saurian Empire, reptilian creatures like the one who had spoken to their ship. Another big group was the Hive Confederation, insect-like beings with multiple eyes and clicking voices. In the center of the room was a small platform with 5 simple chairs. This was where the human delegation would sit. Compared to the elaborate seats and floating platforms used by other species, it looked like furniture from a child's playroom. Counselor Vextar of the Saurian Empire stood up. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with scales that changed from green to gold in the light. His voice boomed across the chamber. "Today, we welcome the species called humans to observe our council," he said. The word observe was emphasized in a way that made it clear humans were not equal members. They come from a small world in an unremarkable system with technology that barely allows them to travel between stars. Laughter echoed through the chamber. Not cruel laughter, but the kind adults might make when watching children play with toys. Dr. Park's face stayed calm, but Lee saw her hands tighten into fists. High Speaker Mordun of the Hive Confederation spoke next. His voice sounded like several people talking at once, which the translation system turned into one flat voice. The humans request full membership in our council, he said. They wish to trade freely and establish colonies in unclaimed systems. This is ambitious for such a young species. More laughter filled the room. Lee stood up slowly. The chamber grew quiet as thousands of alien eyes focused on him. We thank the Council for this opportunity, he said. His voice was steady and clear. Humanity has much to offer the galaxy. We bring new ideas, new perspectives, and a strong desire for peace. Councillor Vexitar's laugh was like rocks grinding together. New ideas? Human, your species discovered faster than light travel only 60 years ago. Some of our civilizations have existed for millions of years. What could you possibly teach us? Lee felt his crew tense behind him. This was going worse than their worst-case scenarios had predicted. Your ship, continued another alien from across the room. This one looked like a floating jellyfish with glowing tentacles. It is so small and simple. Do you have weapons, shields, any technology worth sharing? Our ship serves its purpose, Lee replied carefully. I'm sure it does, Vextar said, and the chamber erupted in laughter again. But the galaxy is a dangerous place, human. There are pirates, hostile forces, natural disasters. Your little vessel would be destroyed in the first real conflict. High Speaker Mordun stepped forward. The Council has discussed humanity's request extensively. We are prepared to offer you a place in our civilization. Ambassador Choi leaned forward hopefully. You will accept protectorate status under the Saurian Empire, Mordun continued. Your worlds will be safe. Your people will be fed, and you will learn from species far more advanced than yourselves. In return, you will provide raw materials and labor, as requested. The chamber fell silent. Lee felt the weight of this moment. Everything humanity had worked for, everything they had hoped for, came down to this choice. Accept slavery disguised as protection, or face isolation and possible destruction. This is a generous offer, Vextar added. Many species would be grateful for such an opportunity. Lee looked at his crew. Dr. Park shook her head slightly. Commander Kim's jaw was tight, with anger. Ambassador Choi looked like he might be sick. Only Han seemed calm, his fingers moving over a small device in his pocket. The human delegation requests 72 hours to consult with Earth Command, Lee said finally. The aliens looked surprised. Several started talking at once in their own languages. You wish to refuse our generous offer? Vexitar asked. We wish to consider all options, Lee replied. More laughter filled the chamber, but this time it sounded different. Less amused, more threatening. Very well, High Speaker Mordun said. 72 hours. But understand, humans, this is the only offer you will receive. Accept our protection or face the galaxy alone. As the human delegation was escorted back to their ship, Lee could hear the aliens talking and laughing behind them. To the galaxy's most powerful civilizations, humanity was nothing more than a joke, a primitive species playing at being important. They had no idea how wrong they were. Back aboard the Harmony's Edge, the human delegation sat in the ship's small conference room. The mood was dark. Through the porthole, they could see alien ships coming and going from the station. Some were so large they blocked out the stars. Ambassador, Choi put his head in his hands. 50 years of preparation, he said quietly. 50 years. And they want to make us slaves. Not slaves, Dr. Park corrected, though her voice was bitter. Pets, that's how they see us. Cute little animals that need to be taken care of. Commander Kim stood up and began pacing. We should have known this would happen. Every first contact. Report said the same thing. Other species see humans as weak and primitive. Captain Lee sat quietly, thinking. Han Ji-woo was still playing with the small device he had been carrying. It looked like a simple scanner, but Lee knew Han had modified most of their equipment in ways that weren't in the official reports. What did you find? Lee asked him. Han looked up, surprised. Sir? You've been scanning since we got back. What did you find? The young engineer smiled for the first time since leaving the council chamber. Something interesting, Captain. Very interesting. He stood up and activated the room's main display screen. I was monitoring the aliens' communication frequencies during the meeting. The screen showed a complex wave pattern with multiple colored lines moving across it. All of their technology, ships, stations, even their translation devices, works on electromagnetic frequencies, Han continued. Radio waves, basically, but much more advanced than ours. They've been using this for millions of years. So? Kim asked. So they've never developed anything else, Dr. Park said, understanding. Immediately. Han, are you saying what I think you're saying? Han nodded excitedly. They don't use sound for communication or technology at all. Look at this. He pressed a button, and the display changed to show brain scans. I was monitoring their neural activity too. When someone spoke out loud in the chamber, their brains barely registered it. They heard the words through their translation implants, but the actual sound waves meant nothing to them. Lee leaned forward. This was important. Explain it simply. Captain, imagine if you lived your whole life using only your eyes, and you never learned that ears could hear things, Han said. That's what these aliens are like with sound. They've evolved past it. Their technology doesn't even account for it. Communications Officer Yoon Hye-ri entered the conference room carrying a data pad. Captain, I've been monitoring alien fleet movements like you asked. She looked worried. Sir, there are ships moving toward human space. Lots of them. Lee took the data pad and studied it. Red dots showed alien vessels positioned near Earth's colonies and trade routes. The pattern was clear. They're not waiting for our answer, he said grimly. They're already moving to enforce their will. Kim cursed in Korean. How many ships? Over 300 from the Saurian Empire alone, Hye-ri replied. The Hive Confederation has at least 200 more. They're not trying to hide it either. I intercepted a message saying they expect to have human space secured within a week. Ambassador Choi looked up with desperate eyes. Maybe we should accept their offer. If we fight, humanity could be wiped out completely. Or maybe, Dr. Park said slowly, we have an advantage they don't know about. She was looking at Han's display screen, where the wave patterns still moved back and forth. Han, show me the technical specifications for their shield systems. The engineer's fingers flew over his controls. New information appeared on the screen. Standard electromagnetic barriers, he reported. They're designed to stop energy weapons, physical projectiles, and electromagnetic interference. But not sound waves, Dr. Park finished. Not sound waves, Han agreed. Because they never thought they'd need to. In their entire history, no species has ever used sound as a weapon. Captain Lee stood up slowly. A plan was forming in his mind, but it seemed impossible. Han, could our ship's systems generate focused sound waves? Well, yes, sir. The entertainment system has speakers throughout the ship for music and announcements. With modifications. Han trailed off, thinking hard. Captain, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? I'm suggesting we give them something they've never encountered before, Lee said. Yoon, can you tap into their communication networks? The communications officer nodded. I've been monitoring their channels since we arrived. Their security is good against electromagnetic intrusion, but they're not protecting against anything else. Because they don't know anything else exists, Dr. Park added. She was starting to smile. Captain, this could actually work. Kim looked confused. What could work? What are you all talking about? Lee turned to face his second-in-command. We're talking about turning our ship into something the galaxy has never seen before. A weapon that uses sound instead of energy, or projectiles. You want to fight 300 alien warships with music? Kim asked. Not just music, Han said, his excitement growing. Sound frequencies specifically designed to disrupt their technology, their ship's computers, their shield generators, their weapon systems. All of it works on electromagnetic principles that could be vulnerable to acoustic interference. Dr. Park pulled up another display. Look at this data from the council chamber. When the translator systems were working hardest, processing multiple alien languages at once, their efficiency dropped. Not much, but measurably. Sound waves were interfering with their electromagnetic processing. It's like using a hammer to fix a computer, Hi-Ree said, understanding now. The computer isn't designed to be hammered, so even a small hammer can break it completely. Lee walked to the porthole and looked out at the alien ships around the station. Each one was larger and more advanced than anything humanity had ever built, but they all had the same weakness. They had never encountered an enemy that fought with sound. "How long would you need to modify our systems?" he asked Han. The engineer was already calculating in his head. "To weaponize our sound systems? Maybe 18 hours if I work non-stop. But Captain, I should tell you something else." Lee turned back to him. "This ship wasn't just randomly assigned to our diplomatic mission," Han continued. "I've been studying the technical specifications since we launched. The Harmony's Edge has modifications that don't appear in any standard Earth fleet designs." "What kind of modifications?" Kim demanded. "Enhanced power systems, redundant communication arrays, and what the blueprints call acoustic projection equipment," Han listed. "At the time, I thought it was just high-end entertainment systems for diplomatic functions. But looking at it now..." Someone on Earth already thought of this, Dr. Park realized. Someone knew we might need to fight with sound. Lee felt a chill run down his spine. "Hi-Ree, send a coded message to Earth Command. Maximum encryption. Tell them we need to know everything about this ship's real capabilities." "Yes, sir." As the communications officer began working, Lee gathered his senior staff around the conference table. "Here's what we're going to do," he said quietly. "Han, you and your team start modifying our systems immediately. Focus on creating focused acoustic beams that can disrupt electromagnetic equipment. Dr. Park, I need you to analyze every piece of data we have on alien technology. Find their weak points. Kim, start planning tactical scenarios. How do we use sound as a weapon against a superior force?" "And if this doesn't work?" Kim asked. Lee looked around the room at his crew. These people had volunteered to represent all of humanity in front of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. They deserved an honest answer. "If this doesn't work, we'll probably all die," he said simply. "But at least we'll die fighting instead of living as slaves." The room was quiet for a moment. Then Han spoke up. "Captain, there's something else. The alien fleets aren't just moving toward human space. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, telling other species about humanity's generous offer to join the Saurian Protectorate. They're making an example of us." "Good," Lee said, surprising everyone. "That means the whole galaxy will be watching. When we show them what humans are really capable of." Dr. Park smiled grimly. "They wanted to see what we could teach them. They're about to learn that humans have been making music for thousands of years, and some of our songs are very, very loud." As the crew dispersed to begin their preparations, Lee remained at the porthole. The alien ships around the station looked powerful and invincible. But in 18 hours, he would find out if humanity's greatest cultural achievement could become their most devastating weapon. The galaxy expected negotiation. They had laughed at humanity's small ship and simple technology. They were about to discover that the most dangerous weapon in space was something they had never heard before. Literally. 18 hours later, the Harmony's Edge had transformed from a simple diplomatic vessel into something the galaxy had never seen before. Han Ji-woo stood in the ship's main engineering section, surrounded by displays showing sound wave patterns and frequency measurements. He had not slept since they returned from the council chamber. "Status report," Captain Lee said as he entered the engineering bay. Han wiped sweat from his forehead and turned to face his captain. "We're ready, sir. Every speaker system on the ship has been modified and connected to the main power core. We now have focused acoustic projectors on all sides of the hull." Lee looked around the engineering bay. What had once been clean, organized spaces now looked like a mad scientist's laboratory. Cables ran along the walls connecting to new equipment that hummed with power. Several crew members worked at stations that had not existed the day before. "Show me," Lee ordered. Han led him to the main control station. Navigator Oh Soo-young was there, along with Master Chief Kang Tae-jun. Oh was 33 years old and had perfect pitch. She could identify any musical note just by hearing it. Kang was 41 and had been a military musician before joining the space program. His job had been to coordinate entertainment for long space voyages, but now he was their weapons specialist. The system is based on something humans call destructive interference, Han explained. We can generate sound waves that cancel out electromagnetic frequencies. But instead of just canceling them out, we can overload them completely. He pressed a series of buttons, and the room filled with a low humming sound. That's a test frequency, Kang said. We've programmed in dozens of different songs that target specific types of alien technology. Ship shields, weapon systems, navigation computers. We have a different musical composition for each one. Lee raised an eyebrow. Musical compositions? Oh smiled. Sir, it turns out that some of humanity's greatest music works perfectly as weapon frequencies. We've got Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, and even some traditional Korean pieces loaded into the system. We also have more modern options, Kang added. Rock music, jazz, even some electronic dance music. Each type affects alien technology differently. Dr. Park entered the engineering bay carrying a data pad. Captain, I finished analyzing the alien fleet specifications that Hiri intercepted. Their weakest point is actually their strength. Explain. All of their ships are networked together, she said. They share information instantly across entire fleets using electromagnetic links. It makes them incredibly coordinated and efficient. But if we can disrupt those links, the whole fleet becomes confused, Lee finished, like cutting the strings between puppets. Exactly. And there's more. The Saurian Empire ships use a specific frequency for their primary systems. If we can generate the right interference pattern, Han was already working at his console. I can create a focused beam that targets their exact frequency. What song should we use? Kang thought for a moment. For maximum system disruption, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, Fourth Movement. The frequency, patterns in that piece are perfect for overwhelming electromagnetic networks. Lee would have laughed at the absurdity of it, but the expressions on his crew's faces were deadly serious. They believed this would work. Communications Officer Yoon Hairi's voice came over the ship's intercom system. Captain to the bridge. We're receiving a priority message from Earth Command. Lee made his way to the bridge, where the main viewer showed Admiral Bae Sung-ho, commander of Earth's Space Defense Forces. The Admiral was 55 years old with gray hair and stern features. Captain Lee, Admiral Bae said without preamble, I understand you've discovered the Harmony's Edge's true capabilities. Sir, were we sent here knowing this might happen? The Admiral was quiet for a moment. Captain, for the past 20 years, Earth Command has been preparing for the possibility that the galactic community would reject humanity's membership. We've been developing alternative approaches to interstellar relations. Alternative approaches? The ship you're commanding is the prototype for a new class of vessel. We call them acoustic warfare ships. Your vessel has 6 sister ships currently under construction in Earth orbit. Lee felt his world shift. Sir, are you saying Earth has been planning for war this entire time? We've been planning for survival, Admiral Bae corrected. The intelligence reports from our diplomatic missions over the past 50 years all said the same thing. The galaxy sees humanity as weak and primitive. We needed to develop advantages they wouldn't expect. Dr. Park had joined Lee on the bridge and was listening to the conversation. Admiral, how many people on Earth know about this? Very few. The project is classified at the highest levels. But, Captain, you need to know that you're not just fighting for your own lives. If the aliens succeed in forcing humanity into protectorate status, it will be the end of human independence forever. The weight of responsibility settled on Lee's shoulders like a heavy blanket. What are our orders, sir? You have full authorization to use any means necessary to protect humanity's interests, Admiral Bae said. The alien fleets are moving toward our colonies. If you can stop them or force them to retreat, you'll buy us time to prepare Earth's defenses. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Lieutenant Jong Min Seok, their 27-year-old tactical officer, looked up from his station. Captain, I'm detecting movement from the alien fleets. They're beginning to form up for the attack. Lee walked to the captain's chair and sat down heavily. Around him, his crew waited for orders. These people had signed up for a diplomatic mission and now found themselves preparing for the most important battle in human history. All hands, this is the captain, he announced over the ship's intercom. In approximately 6 hours, we will engage a superior alien force in combat. We will be using experimental weapons that have never been tested in actual battle. The odds are against us, but we have one advantage. The enemy has never faced anything like us before." He paused, thinking about what to say next. For 50 years, humanity has tried to earn respect through diplomacy and peaceful cooperation. We've been rejected, dismissed, and laughed at by species that see us as children playing with toys. Today, we show them that human children have very dangerous toys. The bridge crew smiled grimly. They understood what was at stake. "Han, are all systems ready?" "Yes, sir. We've got enough power for approximately 40 minutes of sustained acoustic bombardment." 40 minutes to change galactic history," Commander Kim muttered. "That should be enough," Lee said with more confidence than he felt. "Haye-Ri, open a channel to the alien fleet." "Channel open, sir." Lee stood up and straightened his uniform. "Saurian Empire Fleet. This is Captain Lee Dae-Ho of the Earth vessel Harmony's Edge. I'm transmitting on all frequencies so that every ship in the galaxy can hear this message." He waited a moment, knowing that his words were being broadcast across known space. "Humanity rejects your offer of protectorate status. We reject your claims of superiority. We reject your assumption that humans are weak or primitive. You wanted to see what we could teach the galaxy. Today's lesson is about the power of music." Laughter came back over the communication channel, multiple alien voices mocking the human captain. "Your lesson will be brief, human," came the voice of Fleet Commander Zekthar of the Saurian Empire. "Our fleet will reach Earth space in 6 hours. Your world will learn to accept our protection, whether you choose it or not." "Commander," Lee replied calmly, "you're about to learn why humans developed a saying, 'Never judge a book by its cover.'" He nodded to Haye-Ri, who cut the communication channel. "Navigator, set course for the alien fleet. Maximum speed." "Sir," O said with concern, "we'll be outnumbered 300 to 1. Lee smiled for the first time in days. "Those are excellent odds for what we're planning. They'll never see it coming." The Harmony's Edge turned away from Nexus Prime and accelerated toward the massed alien fleets. Behind them, the space station's sensors tracked their movement with confusion. One small human ship, flying directly toward the most powerful military force in the galaxy. In the engineering section, Han made final adjustments to the acoustic weapons. Master Chief Kang stood ready at the targeting controls, with digital sheet music displayed on his screens. Navigator O had calculated the exact frequencies they would need for maximum effectiveness. The galaxy expected negotiation. They had laughed at humanity's pathetic little ship. In 4 hours, they would learn that sometimes the most dangerous weapon was the one you never saw coming. And what they would hear next would be music to human ears, but a death song for anyone who had underestimated the species from Earth. The alien armada stretched across space like a metal galaxy. 357 ships from 6 different species, all united in their certainty that humanity would submit or be destroyed. The largest vessels were Saurian Empire dreadnoughts, each one 3 kilometers long and bristling with energy weapons. The Hive Confederation contributed sleek insect-shaped cruisers that moved in perfect formations. Smaller species had sent their most advanced warships to witness humanity's defeat. Fleet Commander Zekthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Domination. He was massive, even for a Saurian, with battle scars covering his scales and medals from a dozen conquered worlds decorating his armor. Through the viewing ports, he could see the tiny human ship approaching. "Report," he ordered. "The human vessel is maintaining course directly toward our fleet," his tactical officer replied. "No deviation, no attempt at evasive maneuvers. Range, 50,000 kilometers and closing?" Zekthar's laugh rumbled through the bridge like an earthquake. "They're going to ram us. The humans have decided on a suicide attack rather than accept our generous protection." On the other ships throughout the fleet, alien commanders watched the approaching human vessel with mixtures of amusement and disbelief. Some had taken bets on how long the small ship would survive once the battle began. The longest estimate was 30 seconds. Aboard the Harmony's Edge, Captain Lee stood calmly on his bridge as warning alarms sounded from every station. The tactical display showed the enormous alien fleet spreading out to surround them. Each red dot on the screen represented enough firepower to destroy Earth's entire space navy. "Enemy fleet is targeting us," Lieutenant Zhang reported. "I'm reading over 2,000 weapon locks." "Let them lock on," Lee replied. Han, are our systems ready? From the engineering section, Han's voice came over the intercom. All acoustic projectors online, Captain. Power levels at maximum. We're ready to begin the concert. Dr. Park looked at the tactical display with scientific curiosity rather than fear. Fascinating, she murmured. They're arranging themselves in the standard galactic battle formation. Perfect electromagnetic coordination between all ships. It's exactly what we hoped for. Commander Kim checked his weapons console one more time. The traditional energy weapons and missile systems were ready, but they would be useless against the alien fleet. Everything depended on Han's modifications and humanity's secret weapon. Range: 10,000 kilometers, Navigator O announced. Enemy fleet is opening fire. The main viewer erupted in light as hundreds of energy beams converged on the Harmony's edge. The ship's shields flared and sparked, absorbing as much energy as they could. Explosions bloomed around them as missiles detonated nearby. Shields down to 60%, Jang reported, as the ship shook from multiple impacts. Lee gripped his command chair as another wave of attacks struck them. This was the critical moment. The alien fleet was close enough for their acoustic weapons to be effective, but they had to survive long enough to use them. Now, Han, Lee commanded, begin the concert. In the engineering section, Master Chief Kang's hands moved across his controls like a conductor leading an orchestra. On screens around him, musical notation scrolled by. Not the simple entertainment music the aliens expected, but complex acoustic warfare compositions designed to destroy electromagnetic systems. Starting with Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, Fourth Movement, Kang announced. Targeted frequency, Saurian Empire Fleet Coordination Systems. The first notes of the famous melody began to play through the ship's internal speakers, but what projected outward was something far more powerful. Focused acoustic beams, amplified by the ship's modified systems, struck the alien fleet at frequencies that had never been used as weapons before. On the bridge of the Domination, Fleet Commander Zekthar was preparing to give the order for a final killing blow when his tactical displays began to flicker. What's happening? He demanded. Unknown, Commander. Our targeting systems are showing interference patterns we've never seen before. Across the alien fleet, similar reports came in over the communication networks. Ships that had been perfectly coordinated moments before began to drift out of formation as their navigation systems failed. Weapon targeting became erratic. The electromagnetic links that connected the fleet into a single fighting force began to break down. Impossible, Zekthar growled. What kind of weapon creates this interference? On the Harmony's edge, the crew watched their tactical displays in amazement. Red enemy contacts began to change color as alien ships lost system after system. It's working, Dr. Park said with wonder in her voice. The acoustic interference is cascading through their entire network. Each ship that loses coordination disrupts the signals to other ships. Like dominoes falling, Commander Kim added. Captain, we're actually winning, but Lee wasn't ready to celebrate yet. Han, switch to the next composition. Target their shield. Generators. Master Chief Kang's fingers flew over his controls. Traditional Korean drumming patterns, modified for electromagnetic disruption, he announced. The ship's acoustic projectors shifted frequency, and the sound of ancient Korean war drums began to echo across space, but at amplifications and frequencies that could shatter energy barriers. The effect was immediate and devastating. The energy shields protecting the alien ships began to flicker and fail. Massive dreadnoughts that had seemed invincible moments before suddenly found themselves vulnerable to any attack. Shields failing across the enemy fleet, Lieutenant Jang reported, with excitement. Sir, they're defenseless. Fleet Commander Zekthar watched in horror as his flagship's shields collapsed completely. Around him, bridge officers struggled with control panels that no longer responded to commands. Get me a damage report, he ordered. Sir, we're not damaged, his engineering officer replied in confusion. All hull integrity is normal, but our computer systems are failing throughout the ship. It's like something is interfering with every electromagnetic circuit we have. Through the viewing ports, Zekthar could see other ships in his fleet drifting helplessly. Some were spinning out of control as their navigation systems crashed. Others had lost power completely and were going dark. What kind of weapon does this? He demanded. On the human ship, Master Chief Kang was preparing his next musical attack. "Captain, requesting permission to demonstrate human jazz improvisation." Lee almost smiled. Granted, the acoustic projectors shifted again, and the chaotic, unpredictable rhythms of jazz began to assault the alien fleet. Unlike the structured compositions they had used before, jazz was spontaneous and impossible to predict or defend against. The effect on alien artificial intelligence systems was catastrophic. Computer networks that had operated flawlessly for millions of years suddenly encountered patterns they could not process. AI systems that controlled everything from life support to weapons began to crash as they tried to analyze the impossible mathematical chaos of human musical improvisation. "Enemy fleet is in complete disarray," Dr. Park reported. "Their AI networks are shutting down to prevent permanent damage." Across the alien armada, similar scenes played out on every ship. Advanced civilizations that had conquered star systems and ruled the galaxy for eons found themselves helpless against a type of attack they had never imagined possible. But the human ship wasn't finished. "Master Chief," Captain Lee said calmly, "I believe it's time for the finale." Kang nodded grimly. "Yes, sir. Punk rock, maximum amplification, targeted at their communication systems." The last phase of humanity's acoustic assault was the most devastating. The raw, aggressive energy of punk rock music, amplified to weapon-grade levels, struck the alien fleet's communication networks like a digital hurricane. The electromagnetic frequencies that had connected their civilization for millions of years were suddenly overwhelmed by the chaotic power of human rebellion put to music. Fleet Commander Zekthar's communication console exploded in sparks. Throughout his ship, screens went dark and systems failed. The proud flagship of the Saurian Empire was now nothing more than a drifting hulk, its crew trapped inside a vessel they could no longer control. "Sir," his tactical officer said in a shaking voice, "we're receiving a transmission from the human ship. Put it on screen." Captain Lee's face appeared on the few working displays throughout the alien fleet. His expression was calm and professional. "Alien fleet commanders," he said, "this is your final warning. Withdraw from human space immediately, or we will continue our demonstration. You now understand that humanity possesses weapons your technology cannot defend against." Lee paused, letting his words sink in across the hundreds of disabled ships. "We did not seek this conflict. We came to your council seeking peaceful cooperation. You rejected us and threatened our worlds. This is the consequence of that decision." In the silence that followed, the only sounds were the distant echoes of the acoustic weapons powering down and the emergency alarms from alien ships throughout the fleet. "You have 1 hour to begin your withdrawal," Lee continued. "Any ships that remain in this sector after that time will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly." The transmission ended, leaving the alien fleet in stunned silence. The most powerful military force in the galaxy had been defeated by a single human ship using a weapon none of them had thought possible. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 12 hours after the Battle of Nexus Prime, as historians would later call it. The great chamber that had echoed with laughter at humanity's expense now buzzed with fear and whispered conversations. Representatives from every major species packed the viewing galleries, while council members sat in their designated areas looking shaken and uncertain. Captain Lee Dae-ho entered the chamber with the same small human delegation that had been dismissed as primitive just 3 days earlier. But now, alien eyes that had once looked at them with amusement watched with something approaching terror. The humans walked to their simple chairs in the center of the room, and for the first time in the council's history, the chamber fell completely. Silent Councilor Vextar of the Saurian Empire stood to address the assembly. The proud reptilian leader who had mocked humanity's small ship now looked old and defeated. His scales had lost their golden shimmer, and his voice lacked its previous commanding tone. "The council recognizes the human delegation," he said quietly. We have called this emergency session to address recent events." High Speaker Morden of the Hive Confederation spoke next, his multiple voices sounding uncertain for the first time anyone could remember. "The humans have demonstrated capabilities that were unexpected. Our fleets have withdrawn from human space as requested." Captain Lee stood up slowly. The chamber held its breath. "Thank you, counselors. The human delegation appreciates the Council's prompt response to our demonstration. Dr. Park activated a small device, and holographic displays appeared around the chamber showing the aftermath of the battle. Alien ships drifting helplessly in space, their crews unharmed but their vessels completely disabled by weapons that should not have been possible. What you witnessed, Lee continued, was not humanity's full military capability. It was a single ship, using technology that your civilizations abandoned millions of years ago. You evolved beyond sound-based communication and forgot that it could be weaponized. We never forgot. A representative from the Crystalline Federation, a species that looked like living gemstones, spoke up with a voice like wind chimes. How many ships like yours does Earth possess? Ambassador Choi Min-ho answered before Lee could respond. That information is classified, but I can tell you that the Harmony's Edge is not unique. This was not entirely true. The ship was still a prototype. But the bluff worked. Worried murmurs spread throughout the chamber as alien representatives imagined fleets of acoustic warfare vessels. What do the humans want? Asked Counselor Vextar. The same thing we have always wanted, Lee replied. Equal membership in the Galactic Council, free trade agreements, the right to establish colonies in unclaimed space. Basically, we want you to treat us like equals instead of pets. The chamber erupted in discussion. Species that had ruled the galaxy for eons were being forced to negotiate with a civilization they had dismissed as primitive. High Speaker Mordoon called for order. The Council must discuss this matter privately. The human delegation will wait for our decision. No, Dr. Park said firmly. We will not wait in another room while you decide our fate. We are equals now, and we will participate in any discussion about humanity's future. The alien council members looked at each other uncertainly. This was completely against protocol, but they were no longer in a position to dictate terms to the humans. Very well, Vextar said reluctantly. Let us discuss the terms of humanity's full membership. Over the next 6 hours, the Galactic Council was forced to completely rewrite the rules that had governed interstellar civilization for millions of years. Humanity was granted not just membership, but a permanent seat on the Council's ruling committee. Human trade rights were expanded beyond anything any species had ever been offered. Earth was given territorial guarantees that placed entire star systems under human protection. But the real change was psychological. Every alien representative in that chamber now knew that the universe was far more dangerous than they had believed. There was a species out there that fought with weapons they could not understand or defend against. As the negotiations continued, more human ships began arriving at Nexus Prime. The battleship Soul's Pride appeared first, its acoustic projectors clearly visible on its hull. Then came the heavy cruiser Busan Thunder and the destroyer Jeju Storm. Each vessel broadcasted classical music on all frequencies, a not-so-subtle reminder of humanity's newfound power. President Lim Yu-jin of Earth arrived aboard the flagship, Incheon's Symphony, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the largest alien dreadnoughts. She was 48 years old with silver hair and the kind of calm confidence that came from knowing she held all the winning cards. President Lim, Counselor, Vextar said as she entered the chamber. We welcome Earth's leader to the Council. Thank you, Counselor. I understand you've been discussing humanity's role in galactic civilization. We have reached an agreement, High Speaker Morden announced. Humanity will receive full Council membership with expanded rights and territories. In exchange, we ask only that Earth shares its acoustic warfare technology with the Council for defensive purposes. President Lim smiled politely. I'm afraid that technology is classified for national security reasons. However, Earth would be happy to provide defense services to any Council member who requests them, for a reasonable fee, of course. The alien representatives realized they had just been turned from humanity's potential conquerors into their customers. Admiral Bae Sung-ho, who had been quietly observing from the back of the chamber, stepped forward. Mr. President, shall I give our new allies a demonstration of our peaceful intentions? President Lim nodded. That would be appropriate, Admiral. Admiral Bae spoke into his communication device, and moments later, the most beautiful sound many of the aliens had ever heard began to fill the chamber. The human fleet outside the station was broadcasting a concert, real music, not weaponized, frequencies. Mozart's Requiem flowed through the space around Nexus Prime, followed by traditional Korean folk songs, then Beethoven's Pastoral Symphony. For the first time, the alien representatives heard human music as it was meant to be heard, not as a weapon of war, but as an expression of art, culture, and beauty. The same acoustic technology that had destroyed their fleets was now creating something magnificent. Dr. Park watched the alien faces as they experienced humanity's greatest cultural achievement. "This is what we tried to tell you from the beginning," she said softly. "We have much to offer the galaxy. Art, music, literature, philosophy. These are the gifts we wanted to share. But you chose to see us as primitives, who needed to be conquered," Captain Lee added. "So we showed you what humans do to those who threaten our freedom." A small alien delegate from the Peaceful Traders Alliance spoke up. His species looked like bipedal otters with large, expressive eyes. "The music is beautiful," he said in wonder. "Could you teach us to create sounds like this?" President Lim smiled warmly. "We would be delighted to. Cultural exchange was always one of our goals for joining the galactic community. As the concert continued outside, the formal treaty was signed inside the council chamber. Humanity officially became not just a member of galactic civilization, but one of its most powerful players. But the real victory was smaller and more personal. Over the following days, individual aliens began approaching human crew members to ask about music, art, and human culture. Species that had existed for millions of years without ever hearing a song were now curious about humanity's creative achievements. Master Chief Kang found himself giving impromptu music lessons to a group of young Crystalline Federation officers. Navigator O taught traditional Korean melodies to a Hive Confederation delegation. Even the proud Saurian Empire sent cultural attachés to learn about human artistic traditions. The galaxy had expected negotiation. They had laughed at humanity's small ship and simple appearance. What they discovered was that the most dangerous species in the universe was also the most creative. 6 months later, Captain Lee stood on the observation deck of the Harmony's Edge, now stationed at the New Earth Embassy on Nexus Prime. Through the massive windows, he could see construction crews from dozens of species working together to build humanity's first permanent galactic installation. Dr. Park joined him at the window carrying 2 cups of coffee, a human beverage that had become surprisingly popular among alien diplomats. "Any regrets?" she asked. Lee thought for a moment. "About the battle? No, they forced our hand. About the way things have changed? Sometimes." "Why?" "Look out there," he said, gesturing to the construction work outside. 6 months ago, humans were alone in the universe. Now we're partners with civilizations that have existed since before our species evolved. It's almost too much to comprehend." Dr. Park smiled. "But we're still human. We still make music, tell stories, and dream about the future. That hasn't changed." "No," Lee agreed. "That hasn't changed." In the distance, they could hear the faint sound of music drifting through the station's corridors. A human jazz ensemble was performing in the cultural center, with alien musicians attempting to join in. The sound was chaotic and beautiful at the same time, the perfect symbol of humanity's place in the galaxy.